Let me call the Legislative and Rules Committee together, January 31st, 2019. The time is 11:54 a.m. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the prior meeting, August 13th, 2018? Motion put forward by Supervisor McDevitt, seconded by Supervisor Driscoll. All those in favor? Anybody have any any amending or discussion on the minutes? All right, let's vote on approval of the minutes. Those in favor of the minutes say aye.
Aye.
All right, minutes are passed. Next item, amendment to proposed local law regarding plastic bag use in Warren County. Supervisor Bramer has been heading this up, and she offers the law with some significant changes. Supervisor Bramer, would you please go over those changes?
Do you bring it to the floor first or not? Whenever I need to.
Well, if everyone will recall, we did have the public hearings in the fall, and I thought that was really great. We had a lot of public participation, which was really nice, and lots of different perspectives, and I thought there was a lot of good discussion and good points raised. So I took those and worked with other supervisors to try to amend the law to address people's concerns. And some of the things that were raised, like Mr. Whitehead said, we shouldn't be banning only the thin plastic bags, because if we do that, people are just going to start using thicker plastic bags. So if you look at the governor's proposal last year and this year, there's no limitation on the thickness of the bags. It just bans plastic bags entirely, so that's what we did here. The other major changes are towards the end of the law, where there were people concerned about an ability to appeal to the Board of Supervisors. So we put in an appeals process. If they are unable to comply with the law, they would be able to come to the Board of Supervisors and seek basically an exemption. And the other thing that we also worked in for our business community is that we were hearing a lot of the businesses have pre-printed bags, which are already purchased and they're here. They can't really get rid of them or give them to another business because they have that business's name right on them. So one of the things we worked in is that the businesses that already have an inventory of these bags will be allowed to keep using them for a longer period of time. But then once their inventory is used up, they would need to comply with the law. So those are the big changes. And I am seeking a resolution to get this back up to the full board. And it's my understanding from the county attorney that we will need another public hearing because of the changes being fairly significant.
So,
yes, I'm making that motion.
I'll second that.
Motion to bring this to the Board of Supervisors? Is that what the motion is?
Yeah, I'm sorry, yes. Yeah.
And you're making that motion?
Yes, I am.
And Supervisor Dickinson is seconding the motion? All right, discussion.
Does the governor's proposal have costs involved
There are no costs.
in the governor's proposal or in ours?
Correct.
Excellent. Do you need these? Costs. I think you assume it's one and the same. Okay. Is that true?
We looked at that way at the beginning when this was first brought to us by the Tri-County Transition Environmental Group, and that was rejected pretty strongly in this county. So we have not looked, we had moved away from the fees like 2 years ago when we started looking at this, and we have not included any fees.
The other point is, and I think Chairman Conover brought this up, just put the law in effect and give them 6 months to actually start doing it. And that would give them a chance to clean out their inventory and decide what else they want to do.
Yeah. Can I speak to that just briefly? I know Supervisor
Bramer.
I put in the effective date would be July 1st of this year. Now, granted, I was working in December, but I was working on the changes in December, but that is really so that the stores that have inventory have to start taking an accounting of what they have in place as of July 1st, 2019. But the implementation doesn't go into effect until January 1st of 2020.
Okay.
So our businesses would have until January of next year, almost a full year, to really get themselves in order and be ready to go.
Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, for consistency, as I was going through it, making it July, but in other cases, they had to put forward December 31st, 2020 is the extension. Why wouldn't you make the effective date January 1st of 2020?
Because in my mind, I was thinking I don't want businesses running out and buying 5,000 bags once we pass this, and then they can keep doing that. You know, if we don't make it effective until January 1st of 2020, they can buy 5,000 or 50,000 bags on December 31st of this year and then keep...
Well, the other argument could be that it gives them sufficient time to try and deal with the situation, because it is kind of a drastic maneuver that I favor, but I'm just wondering if giving them a little bit more time to adjust their world to what we'd like them to do, which is to eliminate the use of plastic bags, might be...
They'll bump it out another 6 months.
Well, if they're notified by the July 1st, I would assume by December they'd be done with whatever they're doing.
Well,
They have to have a pretty
just my thought.
serious turnover in plastic bags. I can't believe they got a storeroom with plastic bags in the back there.
Well, Great Escape does,
By
for
law.
example. And it was Eric Gilbert that spoke to me and said, listen, they have like a
Great
year's...
Escape? For the
I
gift
mean,
shops?
Yeah.
Are they, is this, all bags in general no weight?
Right.
So that would include the Great Escape? And roadside stands and bellies and...
Supervisor Weil?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I agree. We need to give businesses time to use up their inventory, as well as time to adjust to the new situation. But we do need to have a firm date that says, hey, if you have inventory left or not, you can't use them.
Yeah,
And I think that's what that does. It makes
January 2020.
January 2020 or December 31st.
The law gives them right now, the way I wrote it up, is they have until December 31st of 2020 to use up their existing inventory.
2020 or 2019?
2020.
2020.
Okay.
No, it's too long.
Too long.
Well, it says in number 3, for stores that possess, as of effective date of this local law, and whether it's July 1st or whatever, an inventory of custom single-use carry-out bags that are pre-printed
Right.
with the store's name and/or logo, the enforcement of this local law may be delayed until January 1st of 2021.
Yeah.
Right.
No, but that
That
doesn't...
gives them a
what it
whole
says.
extra year. Well,
And the consequence is, I'm going to go out and buy a whole bunch of these to get me through 2 years. Right?
that's
Not what you want to do. You want
This should be what they have bought as of July 1st, 2019.
They should have inventory on July 1st.
All right.
This year.
Supervisor Driscoll is next.
End the conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since we may be deliberating this particular issue, rather than use a particular date, can't we say 12 months from the adoption of the local law? To give us ample time and the businesses ample time. I mean, we may be kicking this around for 2 or 3 months, I don't know. But rather than a specific date, 12 months from adoption.
That's the will of the committee, to send it forward in that manner? Yeah. Supervisor Bramer?
Oh, just on that, I know from the other side, the compliance side, it's a lot harder to know, well, when did they approve it? What's my deadline? If we just say 12 months. But if we have a date in there, they know what their firm date is.
Well, we would adopt that date upon...
Yeah, would become that date.
We would establish that date upon adopting the law. But if we're kicking it around for 2 or 3 months, it's not, I don't think it's fair to give a particular date or longer. I'm just suggesting that we establish that date.
Yeah.
when we
I don't know
adopt
if
the
we can
law.
do that, though. Can we put that in that way? I don't know, I think we have to have one thing or the other.
Well, what Supervisor Driscoll is saying, on the date that we pass it, if it gets passed, it would be 12 months. The date would automatically feed into that.
Mhm.
And then I suppose the other dates would, if it was 24 months, for example, for people that had bags with logo, and that would mean that's when they would have to comply, those dates would automatically feed in upon the time that it became adopted by the Board of Supervisors. That's what I believe Mr. Driscoll is saying, is do we know it's going to come and be adopted, or it's going to go before the board in March, and then we're going to talk about it and bleed into July already? What he's just saying is why don't you just leave it open in the options? And I think he makes a good point, but again, that's the will of the committee. Mr. Supervisor McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If we do put a date on, and after that particular date, if they still have stock, can we look into maybe a 10-cent deposit on the bags?
Well, I think that at that point they'd have to appeal. They'd have to go through this appeals process if they still have bags left over after the extended time.
Well, if we have a bag and, so,
I hear what you're saying about the deposit, that's a great idea, but I just don't think we can implement that.
okay.
All right, Supervisor Sokol.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just maybe a silly question, but it was said that the governor is going to put something forward, correct?
Yep.
So why are we doing anything?
The
We're not beating
governor,
to the punch.
Yeah. Tried that last year. We said we're going to wait. You know what happened? Nothing. So,
He proposed it.
Supervisor Wild.
Mr. Chairman, thanks. I have to think about the business impact of this, and we have both large businesses and smaller seasonal businesses. I believe the large businesses can absorb this to be able to use up their stock by the end of 2019. The smaller businesses, our seasonal businesses, are probably run on a maybe tighter budget. They're not tending to buy bags that are going to last 3 or 4 years. They're going to buy what they think they need for the year. I think that we should just move forward, and I'd like to see this, just have the date at the end of this year that says no more plastic bags.
I agree with you.
Right? So we pass it in February, we pass it in March. That still gives these seasonal businesses their season to get rid of their bags.
So you're saying 31st of December 2019?
To me, it's easiest by the end of December.
But, got somebody like the Great Escape, what do you want them to do? Dump all those bags that they got locals on?
How many do they have? They have like 5 years worth?
Well, they do have a significant inventory. And I didn't ask Eric Gilbert.
Take them to the Queensbury landfill.
Burn plant. Burn plastic.
All right.
Good idea.
Put them in a ragtail.
Supervisor Simpson is...
Mr. Chairman, I was just going to say, this was in the governor's budget. The governor's got both the Assembly and the Senate. There's no Senate, Republican Senate, they can block it. I'm not sure why Warren County would want to spend all of resources on trying to come up with a solution when the governor would do it on a broad scale. I mean, why don't we send a resolution forward to the governor to do this? And now we're going to get in front of them?
We've been working on this a long time.
Yeah.
Back since I was a king.
They're not anymore?
No, that's what they tell me. And again, he's got it in his budget, but it's not saying he's going to do it. I think we've worked at this a long time. Claudia's done a great job. She's spent an awful long time in getting us to where we are. I think this is a point where we should step out and say, if we ran the world, this is what we do. We don't. We run the county, so we're going to put this in effect in Warren County and establish a bag law.
Okay. Well, what I would like to do is members of the public would like to speak to this. So I'll give privilege to the floor, but I'll come back to the supervisors.
Okay.
See if there's a consensus for this to move forward, okay? Is that all right? So I'll open a privilege at the floor. Yes, ma'am. Please state your name for the record.
Hello, my name is Pema Reed, and I live in Queensbury. I am a member of the Queensbury Clean Energy Committee, and I am not representing them right now, but we are working to improve the environment in Queensbury and all of Warren County, and this, of course, would be included in that. And I found something that I wanted to share with you. This is by Forbes magazine, September 20th, 2018, so fairly recent. Here's a list of every city in the United States to ban plastic bags. Will your city be next? We've collected 349 known cities, counties, and states to have in some way banned or taxed plastic bag use. I don't need to go into the details or the impact because you all are way beyond that, but I want to give this as documentation to the committee because it lists all of the states and counties, and you can refer to it and then Google any of these states or cities or counties and find out what they decided maybe before the Board of Supervisors meeting. And many of them, I would say California, there's dozens and dozens because it's a statewide ban now, but they say Santa Barbara County, countywide ban on plastic bags and 10-cent fee on paper bags, and so forth. It's a lot of them have 5 or 10-cent fees, and New York has maybe 5 now that are have gone to ban on plastic bags. So I just want to submit this to you, and I think it's a perfect time to move forward with it and join the few counties in our state who have done this. So thank you, and I'd like to present this document.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Please state your name for the record when you get up there.
Hi, I'm Jane Canara, and I guess I'm here as mostly an emotional appeal. I've been with this issue a very long time as well, as many of you. I saw the passion with which this board addressed the nursing home issue several months ago. I think we have a chance now to be a total leader in the environmental issue. Glens Falls and Queensbury have committees that are working very hard. They're making terrific strides. This fits in, dovetails very nicely with those strides, and I don't believe we should wait around for the governor, who makes a lot of promises, but we don't know how soon he can deliver on this very one, where you can deliver on it in a very short term. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, you would get my name.
Hello, thank you for the privilege of speaking briefly.
State your name, please.
Diane Collins, Glens Falls, and I'm also a member of the Glens Falls Sustainability Committee. And both Glens Falls and Queensbury are moving forward with sustainable environmental actions. And I also am a strong proponent of this bring your own bag law, and I would urge this committee to move it forward to the entire board almost as an obligation, because it's such an important issue and there are many citizens that would like to speak to it beyond us today. Also, I would be certainly willing to be part of a citizen action committee when this is passed to help implement this. There'll be a lot of work ahead of us. And here's another copy for the board. There's 20 counties that have passed this bill, and can give us some advice on moving forward once it's passed here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name's Vicky Sheldon. I'm from Chestertown, New York, and we've all been aware of this from the last 10 years. Enjoy reading National Geographic. It's one of my favorite magazines. They've had numerous articles about the hazards of plastics in our world. And probably 5 years ago, I started carrying my own bags around with me. You'll probably find about 5 of them in my car right now. Easy to pack, easy to do. And it's just a transition. People just get in the habit. You take the bag in, you throw it back in the car. And when you go into the store, you bring the bag with you. One of the things I do like about Target, which I found out, if you go to Target and you don't use a bag, you get credit for 5 cents. Same thing with Price Chopper. I don't know if you're aware of that, but if you don't use a bag, you get credit for 3 cents. So, and I do think we should be leaders. Our county can be a leader with other counties and New York State and be a matter of a mover instead of waiting to follow somebody else. And Cuomo, he's got to worry about the guns.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else from the privilege of the floor? All right, I'll bring it back to the supervisors. Supervisor Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got 2 comments regarding the issue of inventory and businesses that still have bags. I would invite and encourage them to donate them to a food pantry or an organization that provides good used clothing to individuals. I don't think that the purpose of this law is to have oversight of those types of organizations. When individuals come to a food pantry or a clothing depot, those bags can be available. Certainly, from a local business, maybe that individual family will shop those stores. My other point is certainly education. The other side of the issue is the individuals who do the shopping. I brought along a bag that my other job, this cost $1.70. That's only because I order 200 bags at a time. If I was to order 1,000 bags at a time, that would probably go down to about $1.25. If I didn't have all of the writing, very likely it would be less than $1 per bag. Educating individuals, to hold on to these types of bags, or I've got probably 200 shopping bags because my wife likes to shop, from Target, from TJ Maxx, all the stores on the $1 Million Half Mile. They provide bags when she spends money at those stores. I'll gladly share some of those, which are down in my laundry room. But I think the educational component for the individuals needs to be there also. So it's not as much of a potential hardship on the businesses, large and small. Again, it doesn't, I don't think I've ever shopped and filled up more than 4 or 5 bags at a time. And that's shopping for, maybe a couple of weeks for most of my stuff. So I think the educational component certainly needs to be ongoing. And just as Glens Falls has an open pickup of yard debris, there's a certain time when you don't have to bag it, and there's certain times when you do have to bag it. Individuals are required with leaves and other types of yard debris to go out and purchase bags. They can do that at a variety of supermarkets or hardware stores. The same principle. If there was a place where they could purchase 2 or 3, 4, 5 and have an inventory of these types of bags on hand for their use, to keep in their cars or in their homes, I think that would encourage good behavior and wouldn't be as much of a hardship on the businesses.
Thanks. Supervisor Wahb?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the risk of turning Supervisor Driscoll back on again, one of the things that I did is I had a conversation with Ben when this bag was first produced, and I asked him, I said, Ben, what about those disadvantaged in the county? What about those that are on public service or public assistance? And Ben, to use what I recall from your words were, Mike, don't worry about them. They're very resourceful. So I just wanted to bring that up, and Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's important that we understand also, right? The business community will complain about this, of course, because it's a dollars and cents kind of deal. But if we think about the impact to our constituents, one of the consequences that I was worried about, Ben has set me at ease to not worry about so much.
Supervisor McGowan?
Yes, since the beginning of this, when Claudia was brought it all up, and I said it before, it's been a huge learning curve for me in changing the way that I think and putting bags in the car so I'm prepared at the time that, because a lot of times you'll stop off at the store on the way home from work to pick up 2 things, and when you end up walking out with 4 bags because of course you go a little hungry. So learning, a learning curve. I'd like to see what we could do to educate the people more and changing our ways, and this is not a punishment. This is all in a move to, because it's what it's done for me. Because every time I go to the store, someone always, how's it going with the bags, and what's going on with the bags, and but really changing the mindset is having it, and it's taken a little while for my wife to put them back in the car, and I always ask, because I always look back, where. But it's really, I have them in my work trucks and that, because I know it's really educating the people, and I really would like to see if what we could do to put a 10-cent fee during this transaction, where it would help people become more aware, maybe a little bit quicker.
Okay.
And also help these smaller times, because I did read an article in the paper with a Tom Walton that said that he has a store in Lake George and in Bolton. He's a small time. I know the profit margins are minuscule, and he said he'll load up for $7,000 worth of plastic bags, but if he has to go to paper, $25,000. So, I mean, that's a big margin. That's what I've always been scared about, is hurting the little mom and pops. That's a huge margin in profits going there. So, maybe this 10 cent would help, offset some of the mom and pops to, is to change.
All right. Thank you. Supervisor McDivitt?
Yeah, just we as a county, in my opinion, should not legislate what a grocery store ought to charge as it relates to plastic bags. That is up for the grocery store to determine. We should not be telling the Price Shoppers and the Hannafors in the world how to run their business. Them adapting to no plastic bags is a big enough hurdle, okay? Education, that word's been used a lot today. You either can use a plastic bag or you can't use a plastic bag, okay? The Aldi, there's a situation there where they do not provide bags to anyone. Consumers figure it out. Price Right, in the plaza in Queensbury, same type situation. They figure it out. But my biggest point is this: we as a county should not be dictating any fee-based scenario as it relates to plastic bags or paper bags. Let them run their own business.
Okay, Supervisor Bramer, and then Supervisor Leggett.
Okay, just quick, on that, I do want to note that in Lake Placid, both the Hannaford and the Price Chopper now are charging for bags. And that's their choice. They
That's their
made that
choice.
business decision that they need to do that. And I also want to point out that the goal here is not to just get everyone to switch over to paper. The goal is to bring your own bag, so that we're not using these things that we just keep throwing away. We have a waste problem, and we need to take care of it. Lastly, earlier on in the discussion about the effective date, I think if we change the very end where it says a date, we can just say when filed with the Department of State, and that'll make it effective on that date. And the other dates will stay in there for now, would be my proposal. If we end up kicking this down the road and we need to change the dates later, then we can do that later. But hopefully, we don't kick the can down the road.
All right, Supervisor Dickinson. What's that?
I'll agree to the change in the resolution.
And the changes is what?
Just changing the very last sentence to say, instead of a date, it'll just say, it will take effect when filed with the Department of State. I've seen that. in
All
other-
right, so is there a motion to move this to a public hearing, and a public hearing in, I'm sorry, Mr. Leggett. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Well, there is a motion, but go ahead and speak. Well, I thought I'd get the motion in a second, then we can carry it.
You did.
We have it, yeah.
All right.
Okay, so, you know, with the amended motion on the table right here. After the last public hearing, I did take this, I hold town hall meetings on a regular basis up at the Black Bear Restaurant in Pottersville, and I put it out in front of the crowd that was there that morning about Ben, and I was surprised by the reaction, and it was pretty much, just do it. So, going on that, I feel that there's enough support out there for that. 3 items though. One, there was a talk about doing some sort of cost-benefit ratio if we're going to be imposing something. The other one is education. There needs to be some sort of education component on this if we're going to be changing a lot. People need to know about it. And the third is the stakeholder assistance and buy-in. We need to be able to work with the convenience stores, mom and pop shops, and the larger groceries somehow on helping them transition as well. I do not think that needs to be included in this proposed legislation, but as part of our rollout, that should be part of the program.
All right, so I'm hearing ideas of floating dates to take action will be dependent on Board of Supervisors approval, and that's, I understand, is the motion before us right now, which I'll ask for a vote. We need to stress, I've heard from several of you, the education factor seems reasonable. I've heard the 10-cent deposit didn't seem to go anywhere. And then I've heard the governor's bag ban, and why aren't we just resting our laurels there? And I'm not sure what that is. All right, but we do have a motion on the floor, and from what I understand, the motion is to move this to a public hearing, and I assume that would be in March.
Customarily, so the resolution that we would take up in February is to introduce the law
Introduce the public
and set a
hearing.
public hearing.
And set a public hearing for...
Customarily, it would be the following month's board meeting. We should, and this is not to kick the can down the road, we should consider whether it's wise to set it for April, because by that day, we will know whether or not the governor's budget passed. And his budget proposal, it's Part H of the TED bill. I can get anyone the language if you'd like to see it, but it states that if that proposal passes, it's effective the day it passes, and it will preempt anything on the local level having to do with plastic bag bans. So the question is, if we have a public hearing at the March meeting, and then a week later the budget passes with this provision in it, we've just advertised a public hearing and dragged everybody out to a public hearing for a law that is null. So that's the consideration as to whether you want to do March or April.
1 month. We've waited this long, what's 1 more month?
All right, so, just to make clear and see if this is... Okay, there's support to take Supervisor Spramer's law, with the amended version that dates will be floating dates dependent on the Board of Supervisors' action, that in March, we will set a public hearing date, or in February, we will set a public hearing date for April. Is that the motion that everyone understands is on the floor right now? We can just approve it, yeah.
May I ask a question? Is there, if you go to the legislature, New York legislature, can you follow that bill where it's at every week or something?
You can, if you want to come up to me and give your email address, I'll show you how to do it.
But is that a way to be able to set a date and watching where that bill is landing?
The easiest way to do it, because the bill numbers will change, is just to follow the state budget in the news. They'll report in the news whether the plastic ban bag comes out of the budget or stays in the budget. When the state budget passes, if it's still in there, it's a done deal.
You can't follow it up to the budget date.
You can, but the bill numbers are going to change and it'll get complicated.
Okay. I just thought it'd help you set a date.
All right, so let's take a vote on this. Those in favor of the resolution, please raise your hand. Those opposed to the resolution, please raise your hand. All right, the motion carries. Next item on the agenda, we have had before us a couple of times. Wait a minute, we're not done yet, guys. It'll only take a second. We have a couple of suggested changes in the opioid local law, and perhaps Supervisor Loeb would like to speak to this because he brought the need for those amendments to our attention, and County Council has reviewed that and has agreed with Mr. Loeb and made some small changes in adding that to section number 5, that addiction, that a cause, that there is, that is the unnecessary, and added the word unnecessary in paragraph 4 of Roman numeral 5 under the public nuisance. And if you go on, 5 added that unnecessary, 6 added that, 7 added that, and unnecessarily to that phrase, and added the word that to 8. That has satisfied Supervisor Loeb's concern over the law, and it seems to have satisfied the County Council. But let me give it to County Council Cassane and let her speak to it for a minute.
The chairman actually said everything I would say. I spoke to Supervisor Loeb, and he actually worked with me to make the changes to the local law that addressed his concerns, and also I think addressed the same concerns that I shared with him. So this is now the local law that we're proposing to the committee.
All right, any questions from the supervisors? Motion to approve, made by Supervisor Wild, seconded by Supervisor Cusco. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Is there anything else that comes that you wish to bring before the committee? I see nothing. A motion to adjourn. Supervisor Wild, seconded by Supervisor Bramer. All those in favor of adjourning say aye.
Aye.
We're now adjourned.
Ready.
All right.